clean food and I'm like halfway there. Stop.
Is it going in? I mean,
It is. They approved it. They approved it. It is 5 football fields long.
thank you.
By the time it's
But I can send
Independent subsidiary of Giants.
Riley Ridge. It's called the Riley Ridge. R-H-Y.
it's like something. It's carbon paper. Oh yeah. Yeah. Like something. Yeah. Because you can see the you can kind of see how. Yeah.
I was invited by my friend Perry Lee Pipkin, who's a botanist and a longtime friend who I originally met here in New Orleans, well over a decade ago. And Perry Lee had been spending at least a decade working in high desert ecosystems, creating flora and also learning about medicinal properties of a lot of the plants. They've then spent 3 concerted years creating a floristic inventory of the Silver Peak Valley, and they, I think before they started their project, there had been 60 collections made, floristic collections made, but after their project was completed, there were about 2,000 collections made. So there was really nothing of the plant life recorded in a botanical textbook. If you wanted to identify the plants in Nevada, you usually look at the keys and the inventories from other surrounding states. But there's a wealth of geologic textbooks, mostly so that people can mine and extract. Perry Lee specifically invited me to come out there as an artist, knowing that I love camping, I love being outside, I love plants, and she knew all of these things when she invited me. But specifically, she asked me, as someone who'd been making a lot of work about public sites for grief and how do you grieve things communally and in public, and things that sort of feel intangible. And so when she invited me, she said, I'm creating this floristic inventory because there's a need, because there's so many rare plants, because this is a super rare ecosystem, but also because it might all disappear with the creation of a lithium mine. The first lithium mine was introduced in the United States is in the Silver Peaks. That was created in 1966. And when I went out there, there was a proposition to create another lithium mine. The idea of this floristic inventory is it also is usable in court. It's admissible as evidence. The federally protected flowers can actually can help stave off the creation of such extraction. So in hopes of doing that, after I worked with Perry Lee, I wrote an essay, and I talked to several journalist friends who helped me pitch it to magazines to kind of spread the word, and I didn't get any callbacks about it, and I really wanted to sort of figure out how to bring this into the public domain so that people could talk about it and think about the Silver Peaks and our reliance on lithium. In last fall, the Bureau of Land Management decided that the federally endangered buckwheat plant that has a 10-acre growing radius, doesn't grow anywhere in the world outside of these 10 acres, and a lithium mine could coexist in the same place as sort of a way to let go of the possibility of having to choose one or the other. Obviously, the lithium mine will win. So when that happened, I just put my essay on the internet for friends. But also last summer, after that, working on that project, I got really sort of obsessed with watching dystopias. And I don't know why or if that was necessarily good for my mental health. But the ones that I was particularly drawn to were ones that were like very lush and definitely about sort of nature reclaiming space on its own outside of the human world, or against the human world to some degree. But I noticed in watching so many dystopias is that they take place in deserts as sort of this symbol of, as the wasteland, as the apocalypse, as what happens after it's all gone, right? And it was so interesting watching these after having just come from a place that was so rich in its ecosystem and its ecology. And I also thought about, say, in Mad Max, they're like, nothing lives here. And then they show a crow and a scorpion and rodents. Like, these are all living things, right? But these are all things that, like, by colonial minds, they're not these like lush European forest systems and animals, and they're creatures that aren't kind of given like the stamp of approval as life, right? And so I became really interested in that idea and what it would mean to create sort of an opposite story. I started conversing with an anonymous interlocutor about a project, and this is in the program, about a science fiction film that was made about dependence on lithium in the United States, but that had its production halted. Well, I think the production had finished, but distribution was cut, and there were all these NDAs signed, and so not very much information could come out. And so learning about some of the information of this film, this project is inspired by kind of filling in the gaps and using some of my own writing and drawing and costume to create a world of this film, and also look at why it's so dangerous to investigate this dependence on extraction extracted minerals and materials. So that's kind of the premise for this show. And this show also is only a fragment of that story, right? So this is more about a scene closer, not totally the beginning and not the middle, but maybe somewhere between, of our main character, who's this person interacting with the trash oracles who are inside of this tent, and there's a scene between them that you can listen to here on this cassette. And then some other visual explorations of areas in the movie, both in the city and in the desert and en route. So that's just the framework.
It says here that there's maybe more information about the movie that you're withholding right now.
Oh.
Yeah, to like introduce at a time where it makes more narrative sense or something. So I don't know if that's, and I read this, but I haven't looked at this stuff yet. But I was curious about the process of like learning about something, learning about like a movie that you can't watch, and then kind of deciding what to fill in.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's too broad. But
No,
I'm
no,
curious
that's a
about
great
that.
question. A few things about that. One is I would love to make this movie in full one day. It just costs money, it takes time, and I can't do it all at once right now. So this is sort of a way to begin creating interest. As you know, and many other people in this room know, I come from a world of theater and installation and in a theatrical way. So in a lot of ways, this was about thinking through sort of how can people have a theatrical experience without there being theater or being in a gallery space. And with the theater or a good book, you don't want all the information at once. So there are things I know about how the movie ends or what happens in the middle, and I felt like to give all of that information first would sort of kill the possibilities of what could happen. One thing I'm really interested in the tip line that you see, is that I also love collaboration. I think that our dependence on technology and the battle of going up against large corporations feels so hard sometimes. And it's not something that I alone can figure out the solution to. And that it is something that really takes collaboration to figure out how as a people we can shift our way of relating to the world and to each other. So I feel like this movie is also an opportunity, and I think it says this in the program, but the main characters learn a lot about how to coexist and collaborate with people to build a better world as they're on this trajectory from the big city to the lithium plant. And everyone that they interact with is giving them sometimes advice that goes up against previous advice they've gotten, and they're trying to sort of sift through it and figure out what works for them. And so part of the concept of the tip line is that people can also contribute to that in their own ideas or their own frustrations or whatever. The idea that this can be sort of written slowly over time together. I'm also really interested in the idea of hapaxes. This was a term I learned when I was a kid in synagogue, that the Old Testament is filled with hapax legamemnon, this term that's like so beautiful. It means that there's a word that exists in the Torah, and there's a few of these that only exist once. There's no other time that word is printed, right? And so it has no definition, and the contextual information to help us understand what this word could mean is only in that one specific context. And also probably for people who've read the Old Testament, it's like not very clear all the time. And certain sentences are kind of dry and like skip 200 years. Like it's not always easy to use context to figure things out. And so these apexes are really interesting to me because it means when translations happen, this is like an invented idea, and the different people put sort of connotations on it and fill in the gaps, and that's like such a big part of myth making. So I guess this movie, what's exciting to me is like, how do we fill in the gaps and build something in that sort of like ruinous space, and like that as the possibility for also utopia or something greater. And also, as it says in there, this is an iterative project, so I'm planning on doing more installations that are never the same twice, of different pieces of the film, even if there's not a film happening, but like these splices of sound and installation, and that like that narrative is slowly created on like a larger scale that interweaves with people in different parts of the country.
I'm Stevie Ray. My writing project is called Unseen Acres. I had the opportunity to visit with Zibby and Perry Lee and the Silvers when they were doing the botanical survey and research of many kinds that this work is based on. So
Can you speak a little louder?
Sure.
Because I do.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I'm glad that I had the opportunity to drop in with the place that this work is about, and now that I'm getting to finally see it, it's an honor to be asked to read and be a part of it. This work is from a different place, but is, like Zibby said, related to extraction and the body, and feels like riddles about that layered experience co-created with the land. Mineral rights. Called to the top of a junipered hill, met by the tenderest eye of grandmother, moonlight over Medicine Lodge, cast from my frame a lion's shadow off a quiet cliff. What does salvation mean? He'd wondered, unattached. Our bodies, made beautiful by feasting on views and light, served living to hungry, colonized boys and their endless metal ponies, bucking oil from sacred land.
When I came to Zibby's show, I was really excited because I've been thinking a lot about lithium mining in Chile specifically, and I haven't seen many artists talk about it, or really anyone talk about it. So then I excitedly told you about that, and I have been, a couple years ago I started a collection of poems that are about extraction of resources in Latin America, but also connected to Louisiana and like this relationship between oil and gas and petrochemical industry here, and renewable energy and green energy, and how they both kind of need each other to exist, because the creation of this industry here creates the need for green energy, which the impacts of connect to the whole globe and impact the climate devastation here, which justify the building of new industry here, because if the land is uninhabitable, then you can put a factory there. And so kind of like this weird vicious cycle, and how these two are connected. So a lot of these poems were about fruit, but there's a few that are about lithium mining in connection to where my family's from in Chile. Sex in an electric car. Sunken seats wheezing beneath the meat, creased leather stuck on thrusts of nether, regions of my rock designed for this divine. Lying beneath my surface, my purpose lives in quiet cars and stable moods and mobile phones. A few known negatives, dizziness, dead natives. You pull the clay under my skin into your knee, see the smile in my neck. I'm mined for sweat, your mind, my wet, your wind, hands planing my chest flat as the Atacama salts. From rock and brine, I brim, I bend, my battered breath, a bouncing ball, and battery in progress, charging towards a deliverance, indifferent to the rigor until I'm blemished later, deep in my ore. The pockets of me that hold water are swam with the quiet of a blazing ball, our busy voice concealed by the lithium swallow of your lucky engine, idling below me, masking me in my muted release. No one will even know until I go home and they ask me for my water, for my warmth, and was it worth it, and what was it like making love without the growl of a bird or the caw of a motor, and isn't it so cool, all these people who will get to where they're going without having to destroy a thing.
I biked by, but I have to like spend more time. Awesome. And Ivy showed me some pictures.
It was looking a little rough for a minute.
Okay, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back this weekend.
After the snowstorm, everyone